Hey, it just seems like moments ago, but we're back again with the RAAD Life as we continue our really cool series on profiling local candidates from the man who's always profiling people. No, that doesn't come out right. RAAD
What are you
Gatos.
trying to do to me? I got a reputation here, Paul.
He's always profiling people. He's always talking to people. He's always meeting people. He's always bringing us to the attention, left, right, and center, our community conversationalist, Rod Gantos.
Thanks, Mr. Paul Roberts. And yeah, I mean, we have what do they call it? A hat trick when it's three. We have
Yeah,
three
got a
three
hat
people
trick.
today. I think we did the double
Double headers,
the
yeah.
double treat, like the two at a time, a couple of times, and then now we got a three. Like we're doing a hat trick today.
Well, because
So
we're trying to get them all in. We're right the weekend before the election. So many
well,
people
yeah,
don't.
and I think to be fair, I think we put the word out, and people said, "Hey, I'd be interested," and some people connected us, and I really wanted to try to get as many people in as possible, and give them a chance to be known to the voters. I mean, they're sticking their neck out. Ron, you're sticking your neck out, and you're dipping your toe in that pool, and it's like the least we can do is actually give you a little bit of time, other than, hey, you have 1 minute to answer a question in a forum, and there's three other people that are right behind you to answer a question.
My favorite is no explanation, yes or no only. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
have
you
a
didn't know that this is the kind of show that this is? This is a no explanation.
Because I'm
This is real
because
easy.
I'm mostly Irish. I hope.
Actually, don't even worry about the yes and no. We're going to give you three, and it's a multiple choice, and you just get to pick one. So, as anybody who's done multiple choice knows, C, 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 A, C, D, B, C, you'll be usually fine. You'll pass at least.
Love it.
Uh, but listen, thanks for taking the time, because the other reality is that you guys are, with less than a handful of days left, you are basically out there canvassing, meeting, doing that last push uh, before election day, or where everybody goes out and votes in person. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, really.
No, no worries. This is great. I mean, from the very beginning, we always made a point to, if anybody wants to talk with us, we'll make time to talk with them. In fact, right after this podcast, I'm meeting with somebody from the Jewish community that wants to have a one-on-one conversation. So I'm going to meet them at a Chipotle a few miles away. So
That's awesome. So let's get into it. You're running for City of Irvine mayor,
yep,
which, for people who don't know, it's a voter position. It's not an at large, and then appointed within the city council. So in City of Irvine, it's been a couple of cycles at least where they vote for mayor. I know you guys are going through some districting right now that's kind of rolling out, but the mayor positions have been there for a bit. Um, Take a minute and tell people about you and your background a little bit, and kind of just orient people, whether it's on personal side, background, how long you've been in Irvine, and then what made you want to run. It would be great if you can take a few minutes and kind of get us up to speed on that, Ron.
yeah, for sure. So I'm Ron Scolesdang, running for mayor of Irvine. I've been a resident here for over 11 years. I met my wife here 11 years ago, and ever since the day I met her, I've stuck around. Have no plans of leaving ever. My whole life has been surrounded between business, martial arts, and community service. Um, and even having my gym in Irvine, that's how I met my wife. She walked in at a 6 a.m. class one morning. She signed up the first day and never left. Got married, had our first kid, bought our first home, all here in Irvine. Opened our first dream business, our very own kickboxing gym in Irvine, where it's all ours. We have complete discretion on how we want to run it, and it's literally a dream come true. We are living the American dream here. As far as community service goes, I learned pretty much almost everything from my martial arts background. From discipline, structure, to drive, and also doing the right thing and making the world a better place, which is a very, very
Right.
important aspect of martial arts. And I found a few different ways. And of course, the basis has always been martial arts, from business to community service. But I ended up doing a lot of toy drives, food drives, helping out with homeless shelters, women's shelters, and then ultimately learning how to start nonprofit organizations. And so I started one in 2021 called Seniors Fight Back, and it was a response to the increase in attacks against our senior citizen community, as well as the AAPI community. Wanted to do something about it, so I was like, okay, well, let's start an NPO. And since then, we've taught over 8,000 students in person. We were even blessed to have Nonprofit of the Year back in 2020, 2022 by the state of California. So we're really, really honored for that. And we're still doing it every single month since 2021. It's
Do you do, where do you do your training, Ron?
all my training I do it
Outside
at
at
my
your
gym.
gym?
Yeah,
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 okay.
everything's all based on my gym. But the
And
sub
we're and just do it. Let's do a shout out because I'll tell you, you didn't know this, but when we first started doing the show about 9 years ago, Mr. Paul Roberts, who's behind the scenes here, uh, basically we started talking about baby boomers and we talked about stuff that was age related, and we have a lot of relationships with people like Council on Aging and stuff like that. We've had a lot of people on there, and so our very first guest that was on was Casey Kasem's daughter, Carrie, who basically was on because of setting up her nonprofit, and I was helping her do that. Uh, and she was combating elder abuse. So there was a senior element engagement on that level. And so I'm just curious, like that's great that you're doing it. It sounds wonderful. And I'd love to have people just, if you take a minute, just give a shout out to your gym and tell people again what the name of the nonprofit is.
Yeah, so my gym is called Oka Kickboxing Club. It's located in Irvine, California, and we're just that. We're not a fight gym, we're a kickboxing club. A club for all those of any size, age, gender, experience level, religion, doesn't matter, to come together and share their love for kickboxing or discover a love for kickboxing, whether it's for self-defense, for fitness, for community, any of that stuff. And my nonprofit is called Seniors Fight Back, and
Okay.
we do volunteer work. It's completely volunteer run. Nobody gets a salary, nobody gets paid, and everybody donates their time. We have about 200 volunteers, which is really, really awesome. And
That's
we
amazing.
technically, yeah, it's been really, really cool. We start off with just seven of us, and then now we have seven core members, but we built up to 200 volunteers. And we technically teach workshops across the country now. It was primarily San Diego, Orange, and LA County that we were teaching workshops, but we recently last year spread out to Pittsburgh, where Carnegie Mellon University,
Mellon University, yeah.
yeah, which ended up being a
What?
very, very awesome university.
So it doesn't sound to me like you are a man with a lot of free time.
Yeah,
You got
I
a lot on your plate and you've been involved in a lot of stuff. So what made you want to run for mayor in the city of Irvine?
Yeah, so for me, mayor politics, that term doesn't have the same meaning to me as I feel like it does to a lot of other people. For me, politics, all that stuff is just should be, in my opinion, a synonym for community service.
Okay.
I've been able to help out a lot of lives in person, hundreds of lives in person, thousands of lives in person, hundreds of tens of thousands of people through social media with the boom of that. And then, I got inspired to take it even further now. And now I have an opportunity to help out 320,000 lives of the residents of Irvine, my own neighbors, the people in my backyard, the people that have the same ideas as me and has the same vision as me for the city that they live in. And I didn't know much about politics before, but as I got really, really deep into it, I found that there are a lot of holes and there's a lot of things that could use improvement. There's a lot of things that could change for the better. And as an obsessive person, I went very, very deep into this and I found all kinds of stuff that I believe I can help improve, especially with my team and my
Share
resources.
share some of that with me. Like, what are you thinking relevant to Irvine?
So as a resident, we should be spoiled. It's supposed to be one of the best cities in the country, and it still is. But there's this plan that Irvine put in place when we first moved here, where the quality of life was so high, where you didn't really have to drive if you didn't want to, and if you did, everything would be accessible within 5, maybe 10 minutes at most. And we're
Right.
lucky to be in that model right now, where on the weekends we could literally take our bikes, we could ride across two lakes, go into a shopping center with gas stations, with restaurants, even or there was a Barnes and Nobles where we could read
Yeah.
books, we could eat pizza, we could play at a park, and then ride our bikes home. And literally, we wouldn't even have to step foot in a car.
It's the
Um,
village. It's the what you're referring to is that village model that Irvine basically was supposed, built on, right?
yep, yeah, it's
It's
what's
like
called a master plan.
yeah,
Master
yeah,
plan for Irvine. So everybody would pretty much be within the vicinity and be able to live their life um,
yeah.
within walking or biking distance.
Right.
And we live in a day now where there's so much development going on that we have failed to focus on our infrastructure. And now, my friends, on the outskirts of Irvine, there's only one shopping center, which is the Woodbury, and they've got to drive at best 17 minutes without traffic to get there. And we're finding now that people are leaving Irvine because Lake Forest or Rancho Santa Margarita is actually closer to them than going to Woodbury Center, depending on where they live in Irvine. And as a city, and city should be another word for community, you don't want people to leave your community. You want people to stay in your community.
Right.
And the fact that people are leaving that raises red flags for me. As a business owner, it was so difficult to open our business here in Irvine. On the paperwork, most of these things where you apply for a business license, before you get a business license, of course, you got to look at zoning, and then with the zoning, you may need a CUP or you may need a standard use permit, an SUP,
Right. Right.
and they're supposed to take 21 days or less. So for us, we got very lucky. Usually CUP makes it almost impossible for you to start a business because the process takes too long.
Well, and especially when it's like zone, you're basically asking for a consideration for either a change of zoning or some sort of like it's allocated in a certain way. It's a,
My wife,
there's your better half right there. Uh, so yeah, no, professionally I do commercial interior design, so I'm very familiar with situations like that, and you got to go in front of the planning commission and appeal to the city council and stuff like that. It is a long, and not only long but also an expensive process in a lot of places, and there's no real guarantee whether it's successful or not. So what are you thinking about that? Like, are you thinking about streamlining the process, uh, or offering assistance? What are you thinking a solution is for that?
both. One is education, and this relates mostly to small business owners. Big businesses already know what they're doing, right? They're good, they're golden.
Ah,
Um,
okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
but small business owners have no idea where to go and who to talk to.
Until
They
it's too late and then they're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah,
So
and the
they,
tough
yeah,
part for those that are in the know, let's say you find a space that you like, if you don't sign the lease right away, it's gone. And so once you
right,
sign that lease, you'll be lucky if they give you 3 months, 3 months free rent. But in those 3 months, you're going through this whole process. And then if you don't get cleared, then you're stuck on a lease. And so it's definitely
right.
a huge roll of the dice on if it makes sense or not. And as a small business, I mean, on average, at best, most of us are making what, 20, 30% profit, and the rest is to overhead. So it's the system is designed for us not to succeed very high.
You know what's funny, Ron? I mean, you're talking in my world. I mean, this is exactly the stuff we deal with all the time. And when you get that lease and you got to negotiate the lease in a proper way and make sure that all things that are that are working in your favor are in that lease. You're going through all that whole process. You're trying to secure the place. You're trying to negotiate the rate. Usually, it's higher than you want to pay for. You're trying to negotiate. You're looking at existing equipment, air conditioning systems, whatever. Who's going to carry that? Who's going to fix it if it's an older, location versus a new build? Also, you have to basically now, if you've got to build out, you got to put that into play. So you're outlaying all this money, and if you're doing a CUP, you're rolling the dice because it's still going to depend on a few people sitting on a dais. They're going to make a decision whether that's going to apply or not. And to your point, as a small business owner, your margins are small, your capital overhead is high, and you are in a precarious situation. And in some cases, just to add to it, by the way, because I've had some of my clients like that, you're maybe taking a second mortgage on your home, or you're getting some kind of financing from somewhere, which now puts you in a different location where if that project doesn't work, it's not like a larger corporation or a larger client business that you're talking about, big box or something, where it says, well, we have the ability to sit this through, to see it through, to maybe take the hit the first couple of years. You can't do that as a small business owner.
No,
So
and
you're the only one, by the way, that I've ever heard talk about it.
yeah, I've found that a lot of people in city council, I haven't seen a lot of people that are actual business owners. I've seen them work in corporate, I've seen them as lawyers, I've seen them as architects, but I haven't seen very many that that were actually business owners that did business in the city they wanted to run for. And I think that's important to
Well, and
know.
you're in a service industry, like you're basically a service business. So you're not like a consulting business like I would say an attorney is, or like even an architect is. You're in a meet the client, walk through the door, storefront kind of business, which
B2C.
also then is a different category in its own. So that's very interesting. And you think that that's, I mean, I hear you. You're motivated in making it better where you live, honestly, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
really kind of what's driving you, sounds like.
That's I mean, I believe that's what city council should be, whether you're a city council member or a mayor. You should just be a reflection, a vessel, a voice for your constituents. And I think in modern day politics, it's not the case anymore, at least for the most part. I think that when you become a career politician, you start shifting away from the needs of the residents, and then it becomes the need for yourself. Because now that it's your career, this is your livelihood. You have to do this. You don't want to do this. You have to do this. I want to do this because I want to do this, not because I have to. I have my life outside of politics, even though it's a full-time effort, but there's always
Yeah.
time to make if it's important enough. And
Well, my father used to say, "You want something done right, you give it to a busy man." So there you go, right?
yeah,
So the so okay, so it's interesting though that you're. I mean, is this your first foray in terms of political politics?
completely new. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, like, what made you want to go for? Because again, mayor position, especially the way that Irvine is, that's an overarching thing, right? I mean, you basically are responsible to bring people together, especially with the districting happening, to work
Yes.
towards the whole benefit of the city. Whereas some people are maybe a little more focused on their district, especially if they're running for those districts, and those districts are not small. Like the gentleman who's running for a district next to the Great Park, which is like 80,000 people or something. Like it's not, your city is not a small city, right?
Yep.
So
$350,000
as a
residents.
how has it been for you, for a person who's a first timer running for political office in a city that's as large as Irvine? How's the experience been for you?
The experience has been wonderful. It's not what I expected. It was better. It's been better. I expected an extension of community service, which it still is, but the industry of running for local office is completely different from the industry of running nonprofits. Uh, and I like it. I've been competitive my whole life. My base is martial arts, so I'm currently a WBC and WCK world champion in Muay Thai, and so it's been an honor to be able to represent the U.S. in that sport and the art of Muay Thai. And I've used the model that I've gotten from sports and martial arts, and I've applied it to everything in my life, whether it be business, work, personal, or community service. So whether it's 32,000 people or 320,000 people, it's all the same, just a different application. My base is very sports based. I make sure I have the proper coaches, I have the proper team, and I have the proper playbook. And as long as everybody does their job, we win. And that's all I
That's
want
pretty
for
good
everyone.
advice right there, on just on its own, by the way, for
Thanks.
anybody.
It
Yeah,
works for everything, my relationship,
yeah,
everything.
yeah. And so you said it wasn't what you expected. It's better. So tell me about how it's better.
Better as in much more challenging, much more fun than I expected. Initially, I was very naive. I was like, okay, cool. All I have to do is just pitch out who I am and send out the right message, and then everybody will come gravitating towards. Almost like that losing business model of if you build it, they will come. That doesn't work here
No,
either.
no, so they sold us a bill of goods when they told us that one, man.
Yeah.
What? So that's very interesting. That's very interesting, and I think it sounds to me like it appealed to the side of you, which is basically, you know, competitive, um, disciplined. Here it is. There's a challenge that was bigger than maybe you thought it was, and now it's like, oh, that's cool. This is cool. This is a challenge. I get energized by the challenge, right? You said something to me when I first talked about you being on the show that I felt that kind of just like it didn't hit me from, kind of in a weird way. It was just kind of an interesting way of word choice on your part. You said to me, I said, okay, you haven't, you run before, no, and I said, and you said to me, and it was unsolicited. You said something about the fact that um, I am the non-incumbent choice or something of that
Like
nature, right?
the
So
alternative choice.
alternative choice. You said I am the alternative choice, right? So take a minute, because I'm sure that's like when you're knocking on doors, when you're canvassing, right? When you're meeting people, right?
Mhm.
They're like, I maybe know you as a business owner, but you know, what has that exchange been like? Like, have people been, hey, just happy that somebody's knocking on my door, and introducing themselves? Has it been because you got the whole city? It's not like even just a district, right? So
Yeah.
how has that been?
It's been a massive undertaking for sure because 30,000 versus 320,000, completely different scale, but
Absolutely.
doable with the right team. And we've got
Right.
wonderful volunteers. Luckily for my nonprofit, a decent percentage of them we're happy to transfer over and help with this next stage of my life where I'm trying to give back to my city. And it's been really, really, really fruitful. When we go out there and we knock out on doors, I think we get maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15 doors actually open, and then 1 out of 20 doors actually want to have a conversation. But those conversations are amazing because if they want to talk, they want to talk, and we get very, very deep into conversation, and and it's been amazing to connect with all of the residents. That's been one of the most gratifying things because a lot of these residents feel like they don't have a voice. They have complaints, but they either don't know who to talk to or where to go. And that's a big thing I've been pushing. It's like, yeah, well, now you got me. Whether I'm in office or not in office, you can still come to me because I will still transfer your voice to where it needs to go if you don't want to say it yourself. But as far as feedback, some people, very, very small percentage of people would brush me. I was like, oh, you've never ran before? We need somebody with experience. But there's a big population out there right now. There's a huge shift, and I think we're seeing it everywhere that we're sick of the current system that's working. We're sick and tired of the current legislation that's being put in place, and we want something different. We want something fresh. But at the same time, are you also qualified to do the job? And that's a lot of people that we've been really connecting with. Okay, cool. I'm sick of the current people that are in office. What is my alternative choice? Well, that's me. I got a business background. I understand family values. I got a good chip on my shoulder. I've got a clean record. And when you talk to me, you really, really get a sense of my true intentions. I have no personal gain from this. This is the only gain I have is the fulfillment of making our city a better place. And even if I make one person's life better because I'm in office, then it was all worth it. And that's the case whether I'm running for city, doing a self-defense workshop, putting a meal out for the homeless, et cetera, et cetera. You can touch one life, worth it. And so I'm very, very fortunate that my wife and my son and my dog are supportive of all of my endeavors.
Well, your
Um,
dog's probably getting a lot of walks, right?
oh yeah. Oh, he's more buff than I am right now.
So, do you think just to talk about this change? I agree with you. I think there's definitely a I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired reaction, and it's across all party lines. I think it's just a general condition. It's like I'm done with the chaos. I can't stand the negativity, the lack of finding consensus, the lack of finding common ground, and just be motivated to have those conversations. And then you got that layer of disconnect. I think there is sort of a professional, and it's not everybody, but there are some which it's a political um, sort of melees of being in office. Sometimes is you disconnect like from your ground game, from the canvassing, from the ombudsman kind of role that knocking on doors. They used to call them like wards in the East Coast, and people were like the go-to person in the ward, so kind of thing. Eh, But there's, I think, also, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's also a generational change that's happening. Have you felt that being out there?
I've felt a ton. A new discovery for me has been the generation before me. My current generation, if you were born in the 80s, none of my friends have any interest in politics. I have like one other friend from high school that decided to get into politics and wanted to run for office. Other than that, nobody wants to be part of any of this.
Why do you think that is? Is it just they're busy with their lives or what?
I think because yes, one, they're busy with our lives. Two, it may seem too inconvenient, which it is. And then also number three, even if you know where to go, like you sit into the city council meetings, they're all quite boring. And so who would want to
Tell
sit
me
there
about it.
for?
Yeah.
And in some cities it's like 30 minutes, but in Irvine, sometimes it goes from 6 a.m. or sorry, 6 p.m. until like 2 a.m. in the morning. It gets that heated and that crazy. But we'll get into that.
If you find a city that has a 30-minute city council meeting, you tell me what that city is, because my experience has been absolutely not the case unless they have nothing on the agenda, right? But and so So okay, so what are you talking about? Are you talking about like Gen Xers?
Yeah, so right, maybe if you're born in the, I would say what, the 2000s? 2000s? Yeah, in the 2000s era. Somebody said, "Are you born in the 1900s?" It's like, "Hey, watch it." But
So
yeah,
the people in your generation that born in your generation are sort of maybe at a different phase in life, and or maybe there's a disillusionment because again, you know, you gotta. I think it is there is something to be said about when you gravitate to this. Like you got to be able to do this to the qualifications, right? But I totally hear that. So what other feedback have you picked up from such maybe generation? Because I really feel that there's a generational shift. They may not be running for office, but that there are people that are like getting engaged in the voting. They're wanting to know more. To your point, they don't know where to go to get the information. So somebody who's coming to them and saying, you know, I can be that person for you. Here's where you go. And it sounds like you've been doing it with your nonprofit too. Like, so this is not an like I can see a connection between what you've been doing and where this is now the next step for you.
yes.
Does it feel like that?
Yes, definitely. It's been cool. My generation they may not want to get into politics, but I'm seeing as my generation gets older, they have more a sense of duty, or maybe I hate to say the word obligation, to give back to their community, their world, because they've been given so much for the life that they
Right.
have. So it's been
Right.
really cool seeing a lot of people take time out of their day to make someone else's life better or lives better. But what's really, really cool is even for our volunteer team, we went outside of the box. We started targeting local colleges and high schools, and we have
Okay.
about 50 students of people that are under 18 willing to donate their time outside of, their schoolwork, sports, whatever else they're doing to help walk, help volunteer, and also a percentage of them that are interested in either joining a board, a commission, somehow being involved with their local government, which was never a thing when I was their age. I was too busy playing sports and just
Well, I
hanging out.
think most people don't realize, Ron, and you probably already know this, but a lot of people don't realize that there's some policies in the state of California that allow people to actually register or get engaged before they come of age to vote. You can actually register earlier. And so what you're talking about is those people that are engaged, whether it's city, you know, whether it's school, you know, student body or you know model United Nations or whatever, like people that have that interest, they are actually encouraged to not necessarily they can't vote, but they can still get engaged before they get to the age of voting in the state of California. And so that's a very smart move, my friend, because to tap into those people and to basically get them engaged and have them maybe even follow your footsteps in a way of being, you know, like involved in a nonprofit or you know working in the community. You're sowing seeds that for future leadership.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see, and how I get these kids to want to move forward with it is like, hey, we don't just need help walking, because if you say, hey, help me walk, knock on doors, and have awkward conversations if you're not used to it, right? Nobody wants that. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, this is the ground floor. This is gonna open up the door, get your foot in there, get your feet wet, and to show
Yeah.
you what it's like to be in this. And then as you do this more and more, I'll give you other roles and I'll teach you what it's like. Because I was very fortunate. Everything that I do, I don't have to learn from scratch. I get to learn from the mistakes of my friends, and my mentors and my advisors, and they make the mistakes for me. So that way, when we run forward, we can skip all that and just do what works. And that's how we've been able to get so much traction and get so far in just essentially just an 8-month campaign. Um, we've had wonderful, wonderful team that has helped us through the whole process. And like some people are shocked that I've only been in this for 8 months, uh,
Yeah,
because
to be honest with you, I mean, I was curious, but no, talking to you, no, I totally see it. In fact, what I think I mean, how many, actually, I don't even need to know. I'm assuming that you got a lot of people volunteering, a lot of
yes,
people that are engaged in your team, right? I mean, including the part that's building off your existing relationships in your role, whether it's like from a nonprofit side or not. But it sounds to me what you're doing, Ron, also is you're building a coalition. You're building a body of people that are engaged and involved. And you know you just never know what happens with races, right? But I think you're in a position where you're taking your engagement and you're giving back to the community and being of service to your community. You're taking it to the next level. You're building an infrastructure that allows you to basically serve better your community in an elected role or not an elected role. Because to your point, when you get in that office, you're going to still want to maintain that relationship with everybody that is in your city, and you're not going to be able to do that on your own. You need that team with you as well to continue to be able to be of service. So you're, in a way, you're taking your build it, the engagement that you've already been building in, doing it in different ways, your business, your involvement with martial arts, the nonprofit, and now you're building the infrastructure to allow you to be of more service.
Yeah, that's all it is just scaling what we've been
Yeah,
doing.
you're just scaling. You're scaling. That's exactly what it is. But that's phenomenal. And how does it feel? How do you feel about the upcoming election votes? Like, how do you feel
Good. I
about your
mean, like
chances?
we spoke about before, I am the alternative choice. There's the consensus two leading candidates. You can see it all over the internet. Take
Yeah.
it for what it's worth. But for those that are looking for someone new, that are tired of the current council and the incumbents, and they want somebody new, I'm their alternative choice. I've been to every single forum. I've been to every single event I can think of, and I've spoken to every single person that has wanted to speak with me. We've gone out there and did every stereotypical thing that a politician is supposed to do, and then we've also thought outside of the box too as well. Just like getting our volunteers. In fact, we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
so many volunteers. I'm all about providing value, and if I don't provide value, then I shouldn't be around. And what's cool is recently I got endorsed by the Republican Party, and I think one of the reasons why is because we provided so much value. Not only are these volunteers helping me out, they're helping all the other candidates out too as well. And so imagine it's just me handing out literature to neighborhoods, but imagine if we have teams of people across every single district, and then in those districts, we help the other candidates in those districts pass out literature as well. And that gives them more scale, because there's no way that we're going to be able to hit 320,000 residents one at a time. We've got to be able to spread out into
So
teams.
so you're you're actually helping other candidates that are running when you're covering. Okay,
Their
I got it.
areas.
So your team is actually representing you when they're out there, but they're also representing other candidates,
Yep, as long as I can vouch
getting
for
more
them.
mileage out of it. Okay, yeah, that's cool. What? So I'm going to ask you a few things because I mean we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple of things that regard relevant to Irvine, and you just
Yes or no?
just give me your thoughts on this. I've heard about. Well, no, I've heard about like you touched on it, the transportation aspect, right? We've heard about the fact that the infrastructure is not it's sort of behind with all the development that's come in. Like the infrastructure from the original master plan is now being taxed. When I say tax, like pressures have been put on it, and there needs to be that. Do you agree? Like there's sort of a transportation and traffic issue with the city that needs attention.
Most definitely. Traffic's been a rising problem, especially as the city continues to grow. We just approved recently 50,000 new affordable housing units in the next 20 years. And that about triples the rate that we are currently doing the past 6 years, which is fine. But I think we have failed to look at the infrastructure. It's fine to have that goal, which is great, but how are we going to handle the quality of life for the residents that currently live there? And then how we're going to handle crime, how we're going to handle traffic, all those things. There's only so much roads. We're not really going to expand the roads. We're only building more homes, and that's pretty much it. I think we might be getting one more new shopping center, but what happens which is already happening, you have to drive 20 minutes, which sounds crazy outside of Irvine, but in Irvine, you should not drive more than 15 minutes to get anywhere. If you go to
Well, it
LA,
sounds to me like you need alternative transportation.
oh yeah, alternative transportation. I mean, there's an I-Connect bus route that's starting right now, and we need to expand it. Of course, I've spoken to students at UCI and IVC, and they say that it's inconvenient. But when looking deeper, I don't think it's an inconvenience problem. If it's a logistical problem, we just need to add more routes, right? But I
Yeah,
think
I agree because you're still going to need to address. I wouldn't call it necessarily affordable housing. You need to address proximity housing, walkable communities,
Yes.
workforce housing. If you're in the service industry, and especially if you're a restaurant stuff, I mean, again, you need to have consistency with your labor force. Proximity helps you versus if they're driving from friggin' Riverside every day, right? So
Yep.
there are certain realities that we have to address, and it can't be like a not in my backyard. But at the same time, to your point, the infrastructure has to be supportive of it. You cannot just put more pressure on the system without providing ways for it to basically continue to flow.
Yep.
What about the Great Park? Ooh, do I even talk about that? What about the Great Park, Ron?
Yeah, we had a lot of great promises for the Great Park, and they have yet to been fulfilled. I think there's been one major development, which is the Great Park Live, which is great, but it is one tiny piece out of a plot of land that is so much bigger than just that venue. Um, we made a lot of promises, maybe a lot of mistakes or wrong moves or purposeful moves were made that weren't in, I believe, the interests of our residents. But they're already done now, so there's no need to harp on what happened in the past. It's what can we do about it now? We have
What
charger.
can what can what could be done about it now?
We definitely need to develop. We need more living space. I think Irvine is also missing a flagship library. For a city as great as Irvine, there's no reason why we shouldn't have the nicest library in all of Orange County. I think tourism is something that we have neglected to have. And for being one of the best cities in the country, we should be having way more traffic. I remember years ago when we had the Verizon Amphitheater, I got to see John Mayer, one of the biggest musicians, the most famous musicians of all time, playing in our backyard here in Irvine. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
with the Park Live, I love that there's cover bands and stuff like that, and it's great and affordable for our residents. But we could definitely have, and I know we have Ludacris, an old school rapper, very very big and international. He's going to be playing for the first time at Great Park Live, and I look forward to more artists like that will bring more people around the world to discover how amazing Irvine is.
I mean,
Um,
I remember the amphitheater. I've been to that amphitheater. I also remember you had, was it Raging Waters that was there too, and then it went away. It seems to be that when it comes to tourism, and it's not necessarily limited to Irvine, I think it seems to me that because Orange County developed as basically sleepy, suburban communities, that there's a love-hate relationship with tourism. And when I say tourism, I'm not just saying, come and stay in our hotels. I'm talking about that transition that comes into the shopping center, destination-driven traffic, right? And and it seems to be. I mean, I live in San Clemente. We have a love hate relationship with tourism too, in a way. Like it's kind of funny, right? We want the dollars, we want the ag, but we don't want the impact. And it's like there's a challenge thing. But at the same time, the only economic engine that was being considered in Orange County for the longest time, and I think we need to kind of wean ourselves off it a little bit because we're running out of land, was redevelopment, like development, track combs, development. And that's what happened originally with that area where the Irvine Meadows, was, and the Raging Waters. It was just like, okay, we're just going to build more houses, right? But to
yeah,
your point, we killed a amenity
just to have more
that would
housing.
be a revenue generator.
Yeah, and what's tough is like, so we have the Irvine Land Trust, right, which is a lot of land available to do whatever it is we need. It's being untouched right now. Why? I have no idea. I'm trying to dig deeper and see why we're not utilizing that land because these 57,000 homes are going to be planned to be built in densely populated areas. And that's concerning because I'm sure you've been to Irvine recently. There's not a whole lot of space inside of Irvine. And so
Right.
where is this stuff going to be developed? I'm hearing word that, the few recreational places that we have, like Irvine Lanes and Boomers, are going to get torn down and be replaced with homes. And that's a complete disservice to our residents. I'm like, awesome, we have more neighbors, but now what? We're gonna live inside our houses for the rest of our lives. We need to have more quality of life.
What you're describing is the need for um, a vision that's not stagnant and that allows for adaptability to the realities. Because again, it change is inevitable, right? Things change. Things change. So any plan that you put down, as good as it is when you put it down, cannot be the only way that you go. Like it has to adjust. You're in martial arts, man. I mean, every time you're facing a different opponent, right?
Mhm. You gotta adapt.
You have to adapt. You have to adjust. You have to, right, and still be able to basically pull it off. So okay, so we talked about the Great Park. We got a couple of minutes left here.
Okay.
Give me one other thing that's kind of like a concern that you think requires a new vision.
There's two, and I'll make it quick. Public safety is very, very important. We're understaffed right now. We're 64% under the California average. We only have 1.3 officers per 1,000 residents, and we should be doubling that, right? And so our current department is doing a wonderful job as is, but imagine if they had the proper resources to do an even better job than they already are. Our senior citizen community is very under supported and underappreciated. We have three senior citizen centers here in Irvine, and they're underutilized. We should be filling that thing up. The biggest killer is lack of purpose. And I've been speaking to some of these residents, and they literally are bored. They have nothing to do. I don't want them in their houses all day. I want them out and about, and I want them doing stuff. And I also want them to know that we love them and that we care for them. And so we definitely got to get more engagement out of that.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that one, because I hear you 110%. And I will tell you one thing: change the marquee on the wall from senior center to wellness center. That's your first step, because nobody I'm an Xer. Paul is a boomer. We're not aging the same way our parents aged, and we have almost 30 years additional time from the day we decide we're going to retire at 65, right? So what are we going to do with a third of our life? And I'm not going to go sit at a laminated table, okay, and basically play shuffleboard, and I'm not going to go play golf all the time either. So to your point, yes, the programming is super critical. The revisioning of those centers is super critical, because they're an amazing amenity, and we across the whole county, we're an aging county. So you got to get your head in a different space. Plus, all those people that are so seasoned and still got their faculties, I mean, why aren't we utilizing them?
Yep, I agree.
And you're working with them with your nonprofit, so you're getting firsthand connection and understanding of what it is. And when they're telling you they're bored out of their skulls, yes, and loneliness is a factor. And whereas in the past maybe you had seniors that were still married couples that are seniors, you have a totally different profile and user right now. And we got to come up with different ways of addressing this, same way as we have to come up with different ways of addressing housing.
Yep. And then speaking of housing, I'll touch up on two more things: a personal thing and then something new for the city.
Tell me real quick.
The city council just passed a plans for a homeless shelter here in Irvine, and it's supposed to be one of the biggest ones in Orange County. But there's no actual plan in place. It's an idea, but they are trying to approve a $20 million property before the end of November. And I think that's very alarming, because I'm sure as any business owner or anybody that has strategy in sports or competition knows that you must plan before you execute. You don't execute and then plan. And right now, the city is trying to purchase this plot of land because they're afraid that nothing may be available later. So they're thinking buy first and then plan after. And I personally don't think that's a good idea. And so trying to get a bunch of residents together for the next city council meeting so we can all express our concerns about this homeless shelter.
Is it part of the requirement by the state, because you have to actually designate an area for that? I think that may be what's
not so much an area. There's a great alternative plan, which is instead of dumping $20 million plus whatever it takes to get this program running, there's already a program in place. But why not put $2, $3, $4 million to our neighboring city in Tustin that already has an amazing homeless shelter, and build that thing up and make that one the marquee? And now we collaborate.
Right. I think sadly, what you're referring to, which is absolutely the correct way, we need regional solutions. But in order to have regional solutions, we really got to have communication across our city boundaries and come up with that stuff and not be in our siloed mindset. Ron, it's been a real pleasure, man. It's been really nice to get to know you. Yeah.
Obviously, I can keep talking all day, but
we absolutely can. You and I, we got a coffee date up coming up. Good luck with the next few days. Good luck with what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing with this. I don't even want to call them seniors. With our seasoned member adults, our society, right? And seriously, man, keep up the good work. I'm going to have you back on to talk about your nonprofit after we get through this cycle. So stay in touch. Good luck. Keep canvassing, man. That's all you can do.
You got it. Ron Scolesdang, guys, running for Irvine mayor. We are Irvine.
And there's the website, everybody. Scolesdang RonForMayor.com. Look him up. Guy's got a lot of interesting stuff he's involved in. He's one you should know. Thanks, Ron.
Appreciate you. Have a good one, guys. Bye, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.